Think grocery prices are bad where you live? Imagine walking into the store for milk, bread, and a few basics and watching the total climb past $100 before you even reach the meat aisle. Across Canada, food prices haven't just risen, they've snapped. And this isn't a luxury problem, it's a survival one. Before we count down the Canadian cities where grocery bills are hitting hardest, hit like, share this with someone who shops for a family, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. Stay tuned because the number one city will shock you, and it's not where most people expect. Number 10. Winnipeg, Manitoba. Winnipeg has long carried the reputation of being one of Canada's most affordable big cities, cheaper housing, lower rent, a place where your paycheck was supposed to stretch further. But at the grocery store, that reputation is starting to fall apart. Winnipeg's metro population sits at roughly 840,000 people, spread across a wide urban area of about 180 square miles, which keeps density low and distances long. That matters because food here doesn't magically appear. Much of it travels thousands of kilometers before landing on store shelves. Winnipeg's winters are not just cold, they're extreme. Average January temperatures hover near -16 degrees Celsius, and annual snowfall pushes past 110 centimeters. Those conditions increase storage, transportation, and spoilage costs. When highways slow or rail shipments get delayed, prices don't pause, they climb. The median household income in Winnipeg sits around $72,000, noticeably below larger cities like Toronto or Calgary. Unemployment has floated near 5.5 to 6%, depending on the season. Wage growth has been modest, increasing only a few percent annually, while food prices have risen faster than paychecks. That gap is where the pressure builds. On average, a household of 4 in Winnipeg now spends $1,050 to $1,150 per month on groceries if they cook most meals at home. That's up hundreds of dollars compared to just a few years ago. Yes, housing is cheaper, with average home prices around $360,000, but those savings are increasingly being swallowed at checkout. Cheaper rent doesn't help when your grocery bill feels fixed and unavoidable. Winnipeg still offers short commutes, strong community ties, and a slower pace of life, but those perks don't reduce the cost of feeding a family. In a city built on affordability, groceries are quietly becoming the breaking point, and many residents are feeling it first. Number 9. Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. Saskatoon looks affordable on paper. Smaller population, lower housing costs, fewer big city headaches, but when it comes to groceries, this city delivers a surprise many residents didn't see coming. Saskatoon's population sits at roughly 285,000 people, spread across about 90 square miles, making it one of the least dense cities on this list. That low density creates a hidden problem: fewer distribution hubs, fewer competing grocers, and less pricing pressure to keep costs down. Winters in Saskatoon are long and punishing. Temperatures regularly fall below -20 degrees Celsius, with annual snowfall averaging around 100 centimeters. Fresh produce in winter is almost entirely imported. When fuel costs rise or supply routes tighten, grocery prices respond immediately. The median household income in Saskatoon is approximately $78,000. But employment is heavily tied to agriculture, mining, and resource cycles. Unemployment typically ranges between 5 and 6.5%, swinging with economic conditions. That volatility makes food inflation especially painful because incomes don't rise steadily enough to absorb it. The average monthly grocery bill for a family of 4 in Saskatoon now lands between $1,000 and $1,100, even with careful budgeting. Housing remains relatively affordable, with average home prices near $390,000, but groceries have become one of the fastest-growing expenses. Limited store competition means fewer discounts, fewer loss leaders, and less relief week to week. Saskatoon offers strong community life, short commute times, and access to nearby farmland, at least in theory. In practice, most food still moves through long supply chains. Saskatoon may feel cheaper than Canada's biggest cities, but at the grocery store, the margin for error is disappearing fast. Number 8. Halifax, Nova Scotia. Halifax is often seen as a more relaxed alternative to Canada's biggest cities. Ocean views, historic neighborhoods, and a slower pace of life. But at the grocery store, Halifax residents are discovering that coastal living comes with a serious price tag. The Halifax regional population sits at roughly 485,000 people, spread across a massive area of more than 2,100 square miles. That low population density creates logistical challenges. Food has to travel farther, and fewer high-volume distribution centers mean higher per-unit costs before items even hit the shelves. Halifax's coastal weather is unpredictable. Frequent storms, heavy rain, and winter freeze-thaw cycles disrupt transportation regularly. Annual snowfall averages around 150 centimeters, and storm-related delays are common. Every disruption adds cost, especially for fresh produce and refrigerated goods. The median household income in Halifax is approximately $76,000, noticeably below the national average. Unemployment has hovered around 6%, higher than many Western cities. Wage growth has struggled to keep pace with food inflation, leaving households feeling squeezed even when employment remains steady. A typical family of 4 in Halifax now spends about $1,050 to $1,200 per month on groceries. That's a sharp increase for a city where housing already consumes a growing share of income, with average home prices pushing past $500,000. Despite being a port city, most food is still imported through centralized supply chains, meaning proximity to the ocean does not equal cheaper groceries. Halifax offers walkable neighborhoods, strong community ties, and a thriving local food scene during warmer months, but seasonal farmers markets don't cover year-round needs. Halifax proves that even smaller coastal cities are no longer insulated from Canada's grocery price shock. Number 7. Edmonton, Alberta. Edmonton has long marketed itself as one of the best-value big cities in Canada. Compared to Toronto or Vancouver, housing is cheaper, commutes are shorter, and incomes are solid. But grocery bills are quietly eating away at those advantages. Edmonton's metro population sits around 1.5 million people, spread across roughly 265 square miles. While that size supports major retail infrastructure, the city's climate creates unique cost pressures that shoppers feel every winter. Edmonton experiences long, cold winters, with January temperatures averaging near -12 degrees Celsius and annual snowfall around 120 centimeters. Extreme cold increases energy costs for storage, transportation, and retail operations. Those expenses get baked directly into food prices. Median household income in Edmonton is approximately $82,000, higher than many Canadian cities. However, unemployment has fluctuated between 5.5% and 7%, driven by energy sector volatility. When incomes are unstable, even moderate grocery inflation feels severe. A family of 4 in Edmonton now spends roughly $1,050 to $1,150 per month on groceries. While average home prices remain relatively affordable at around $420,000, savings from housing are increasingly redirected toward food. Edmonton has strong retail competition, but higher operating and logistics costs limit how much relief discounts can provide. The city offers large homes, access to nearby farmland, and strong community amenities, but proximity to agriculture doesn't eliminate distribution and processing costs. Edmonton may still look affordable compared to other major cities, but groceries are quietly erasing that edge. Number 6. Montreal, Quebec. Montreal often gets credit for being one of Canada's more affordable big cities. Rents are lower than Toronto or Vancouver, public transit is strong, and daily life feels cheaper in many ways, but groceries are where that perception starts to crack. The Montreal metro area is home to roughly 4.3 million people, packed into about 1,650 square miles, making it one of the densest urban regions in the country. Density usually helps keep prices down, but food costs in Montreal have been moving in the opposite direction. Montreal's winters are long and harsh, with average January temperatures around -9 degrees Celsius and annual snowfall near 210 centimeters. That level of snow increases transportation delays, refrigeration costs, and spoilage risk. Fresh produce prices climb sharply in winter, and those increases rarely reverse fully in summer. Median household income in Montreal sits near $75,000, significantly lower than Toronto, Calgary, or Vancouver. Unemployment has hovered around 5.5%, but after-tax income is further reduced by higher provincial deductions. That leaves less disposable income to absorb rising food costs. A family of 4 in Montreal now spends approximately $1,000 to $1,100 per month on groceries, even when cooking most meals at home. Average home prices sit around $540,000, and while that's cheaper than Toronto, the savings are being offset by rising everyday expenses. Smaller grocery stores in limited bulk buying options in dense neighborhoods make it harder to reduce costs. Montreal offers excellent transit, rich culture, and vibrant local food markets during warmer months, but seasonal affordability doesn't translate into year-round relief. Montreal still feels cheaper in some areas, but groceries are steadily erasing that advantage. Number 5. Ottawa, Ontario. Ottawa is one of the most economically stable cities in Canada. Government jobs dominate the workforce, layoffs are rare, and incomes are predictable. Yet despite that stability, grocery prices are becoming a growing source of stress. The Ottawa-Gatineau metro area has a population of about 1.5 million people, spread across roughly 2,800 square miles. That sprawl increases transportation distances and distribution costs, even though the city itself feels compact. Ottawa winters are cold and snow-heavy, with January temperatures averaging -10 degrees Celsius and snowfall near 220 centimeters annually. Cold storage, winter trucking, and heating costs all add to food prices during long winter stretches. Median household income in Ottawa is relatively high at around $90,000, supported by public sector employment. Unemployment often sits below the national average, near 5%. However, wage growth has been steady rather than strong, while food prices have risen faster than many expected. The average family of 4 in Ottawa now spends almost $1,050 to $1,200 per month on groceries. Housing costs are already elevated, with average home prices around $650,000, leaving households with less flexibility. Grocery inflation now competes directly with mortgage payments, utilities, and childcare. Ottawa offers safety, good schools, and stable employment, but stability doesn't protect against rising living costs. Ottawa proves that even in Canada's most secure job market, grocery prices are becoming impossible to ignore. Number 4. Calgary, Alberta. Calgary is often held up as proof that Canada still has cities where high incomes balance out high costs. Paychecks are stronger, taxes are lower, and housing, while rising, still looks reasonable compared to Toronto or Vancouver. But at the grocery store, that math is starting to break down. The Calgary metro area has a population of roughly 1.7 million people, spread across about 320 square miles. That scale supports major retail infrastructure, but it also means long distribution routes and heavy reliance on trucking. Calgary's weather is unpredictable. Winter temperatures regularly drop below -10 degrees Celsius, and annual snowfall averages around 125 centimeters. Sudden cold snaps increase fuel, storage, and transportation costs almost overnight. Those costs show up quickly on grocery shelves, especially for fresh food. Median household income in Calgary sits near $95,000, among the highest in the country. However, employment remains tied to energy markets. Unemployment has fluctuated between 5 and 7%, depending on oil prices. When incomes swing and grocery costs stay elevated, households feel exposed.
A family of 4 in Calgary now spends roughly $1,100 to $1,250 per month on groceries, even when buying store brands and cooking at home. Housing prices have climbed towards $650,000 on average, meaning grocery inflation now stacks on top of already rising mortgage and utility costs. Strong competition between grocers helps, but it no longer offsets higher operating expenses. Calgary offers access to nearby agriculture, fresh beef, and a high quality of life, but proximity doesn't eliminate processing, packaging, and retail markups. Calgary still pays well, but groceries are quietly consuming more of that advantage every month. Number 3. Toronto, Ontario. Toronto is Canada's economic engine. Jobs are plentiful, wages are higher, opportunities are everywhere. But for millions of residents, grocery prices have become one of the most punishing parts of living in the country's largest city. The Toronto metro area is home to approximately 6.7 million people, packed into about 2,750 square miles. Density should create efficiency. Instead, it's fueling demand pressure that keeps prices elevated. Toronto's winters are milder than many cities on this list, with average January temperatures near -3 degrees Celsius and annual snowfall around 120 centimeters. Yet seasonal weather still disrupts supply chains, and constant demand prevents prices from easing even in better conditions.
Median household income in Toronto sits around $85,000, but that number hides huge variation. Unemployment typically ranges between 5 and 6%, while wage growth struggles to keep up with living costs. Many households earn well, but feel perpetually behind. A family of 4 in Toronto now spends $1,150 to $1,300 per month on groceries, sometimes more. Shrinkflation is especially visible here. Prices may look familiar, but packages are smaller, forcing shoppers to buy more often. With average home prices hovering near $1.1 million, grocery bills now compete directly with rent and mortgage payments. Toronto offers unmatched food variety and access to global cuisine, but variety doesn't equal affordability. In Canada's richest city, groceries have become one of the most relentless financial pressures of all. Number 2. Vancouver, British Columbia. Vancouver is no stranger to high living costs. Housing has dominated the conversation for years, but now groceries are emerging as one of the most punishing expenses in a city that already asks a lot from its residents. The Metro Vancouver area is home to roughly 2.8 million people, spread across about 1,100 square miles. That density creates constant demand, and demand keeps prices sticky, even when inflation elsewhere cools.
Vancouver's mild winters are often seen as an advantage, but extreme weather has become a growing issue. Floods, landslides, and highway closures have repeatedly disrupted key supply routes into the region. Annual rainfall exceeds 1,200 millimeters, and even short disruptions can cause immediate price spikes for fresh food. Median household income in Vancouver sits around $85,000, similar to Toronto. Unemployment generally ranges between 5 and 6%. The issue isn't employment, it's the gap between income and costs. After housing, groceries take up a larger share of disposable income here than almost anywhere else in Canada. A family of 4 in Vancouver now spends approximately $1,200 to $1,350 per month on groceries. That's before dining out. With average home prices hovering near $1.2 million, grocery inflation compounds an already extreme cost of living burden. Heavy reliance on imported food, combined with high retail rents and labor costs, keeps prices elevated year-round. Vancouver offers fresh seafood, access to local produce in season, and one of the healthiest food cultures in the country, but those benefits come at a premium. Vancouver proves that when housing breaks affordability, groceries are often the next domino to fall.
Number 1. St. John's, Newfoundland and Labrador. St. John's may surprise people at the top of this list. It's smaller, it's quieter, and it's far from Canada's biggest economic centers. But when it comes to grocery prices, that distance is exactly the problem. The St. John's metro area has a population of roughly 215,000 people, spread across about 170 square miles. Smaller scale means fewer suppliers, fewer competitors, and far less pricing power for consumers. St. John's experiences some of the harshest weather in the country. Annual snowfall averages over 330 centimeters, and strong winds frequently disrupt shipping. Ferry delays, storm cancellations, and supply interruptions are common, and every disruption raises food costs. Median household income in St. John's sits near $78,000, while unemployment often runs higher than the national average, typically around 6.5 to 7%. Income growth is inconsistent, making sustained food inflation especially damaging. A family of 4 in St. John's now spends roughly $1,150 to $1,300 per month on groceries. That's comparable to Toronto and Vancouver, despite far lower average incomes. Housing is cheaper, with average home prices near $350,000, but grocery costs erase much of that advantage. Limited supply routes and higher transportation costs leave residents with little room to shop around. St. John's offers strong community bonds, culture, and a slower pace of life, but isolation comes at a price. In St. John's, groceries aren't just expensive, they're a reminder of how fragile affordability can be. Across Canada, the story is repeating itself. Different cities, different economies, but the same pressure at the checkout line. Groceries are no longer a background expense, they're reshaping budgets, lifestyles, and financial security. Whether it's supply chains, income gaps, or rising operating costs, food prices have crossed a line. Which city shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments, and if this breakdown helped you understand what's really happening behind your grocery bill, like, share, and subscribe so you're ready for what comes next.